Welcome to the Life Chat Podcast, seeking the truth with Derek Powell, navigating you through. Every Wednesday night, new topics ignite. Join the journey, let's take flight. Bringing insights that change our view. Derek's voice, clear and true. Tune in each week, discover new light. Life Chat Podcast, reaching new heights.
Welcome once again to Life Chat Podcast. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Today, we have a very special guest in the midst. But before we get to the actual segment, I just want to say thank everybody for making Life Chat Podcast what it is. This is September. We're 1 month away from a 1 year anniversary of Life Chat Podcast. And it wouldn't be possible without all the viewers, subscribers, listeners, and supporters. I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate you all. But tonight, I think we're in for a treat. We had Mr. Matthew Anderson. He's going to share a little bit about the topic for the night. The topic being, we are worth the struggle. And right now, I think Mr. Matthew just, pulled up. I think I heard a car door slam. If I'm not mistaken, it was a big SUV. So here it comes, Mr. Matthew Anderson. Hey, Mr. Matthew. The big SUV pulled up. I can't hear you, Matt. I can't hear you. There you go.
It's actually a
There you
limo.
go.
It was a
It was a
limo.
limo.
It wasn't. What's an SUV? It was an SUV limo. Hey,
Whatever.
so
Well, there we go. They have
how's everybody doing, man? Appreciate coming out, man. My name's Matthew Anderson. I'm a community advocate. I don't really like go down my whole list of things that I do, just like not to toot my own horn because ego rebuilt itself of me on a regular basis. But those of you that may be watching this may already know about the work that I do in the community, and like what God's plan is for me. I became a man of God through a 12-step process, and now I just work hard in the community trying to bring other people to a solution to the problem as we were discussing, and help people find the ends and means to find a relationship with God and or their self, for that matter, and their communities for that matter, and their families and their children's lives, through this process and through the struggle. All this stuff happened through the struggle.
and with the word struggle being an opportune word for the topic, and you just mentioned the word struggle. I think we have to remember that the word struggle. We're not just talking about the substance use. We're not just talking about that in general. We're talking about. I know for me personally, my struggle was up here mentally because I was at a point in my life at one time where I thought all I was going to do was use. I thought I was the only thing that's all I was going to do for the rest of my life was get high, and commit crimes and all that type of stuff. So my struggle was more of myself up here. That was without getting high. But once I started getting high, it just progressed and continued to progress. And then my struggles became so much more because I had to depend on that chemical or that substance. And I just wanted to talk about that. What the title is we are worth the struggle. It's just finding out who we are. So can you elaborate a little bit about some of the struggle and what it took for you to find out who you were?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. Um, Honestly, since I as long back as I can remember, the biggest struggle that I had was controlling my emotional nature. I would get angry. I would have fits. I mean, as long back as I can remember, I come from a rather violent family. Come from a violent neighborhood, and like I always wanted to be like the man, and a lot of the struggles came from me just being selfish and self-centered and trying to be seen, and that's kind of how it developed. Like I had an older brother, Joey. A lot, as my brother passed away from fentanyl about 2 years ago, and like he was the man growing up, and everywhere I went, like Joey was the man, and like I developed that too. And Joey he fought everybody. Everybody like would say that's Joey's little brother, that's Joey's little brother, and I wanted that, so I had this issue with getting angry, and losing control, punching things, breaking, punching holes in walls, breaking things on the floor, or whatever the case may be. Like I was an angry kid. My dad was angry. And kind of like how everything was solved in my household was through violence. Like the answer to everything was violence. So that developed this part of me that I took everywhere. You understand what I'm saying? Like I had this ego and this huge prideful nature of like, you're not going to talk to me any sort of way, you're not going to treat me any sort of way there, and it was a bad mixture for me to have that. And you're talking, and this is like you said, that there before drugs and alcohol came along, this is
Mhm.
something that I was struggling with, and it's like, and then when you mix this uncontrollable emotional nature with an uncontrollable substance down the
Right.
line, it just was a mixture for appetite. So I just didn't have any self-control. And I would go around and think that, like, the answer to everything, even a card game or a basketball game or anything, was like through violence. And that
Challenge.
led me to, yeah, going to prison. And I was in and out of institutions most of my life, from juvenile detention centers on to a lot of extensive time in prison through either stealing stuff one or the other, either the uncontrollable emotional nature or the substance abuse problem, always led me back to an institution. And then after spending tons of years in that institution, along with this uncontrollable emotional nature, along with, this substance abuse problem, in that institution, I was able to be who I was and kind of develop more into prideful nature because everybody in there is prideful.
Yeah.
So then I would come home and there was like no change in me. There was no point in my life where I I would go to the programs in there and go to these counseling set, whatever they had, whatever the institutions that I was at were, whatever was available there, I would attend, looking for answers. It's not like I wasn't looking for answers, I just didn't have any. And then I would come home, and then boom, that street mentality would come right back, and I thought that like I had to do this or do that or sell drugs or whatever the case may be and be the man again, and then I would end up back in prison. So you were correct by saying the number one struggle and the biggest struggle is right up here. That's been my biggest struggle, is with me, always thinking that I'm the man, selfish and self-centeredness. I had to come to a point where I was talking about this earlier. I attended a group earlier. I spoke for a group of people earlier where I literally had to come to the end of myself. You know, I had to. There was no other way to, when I think that I got the answers and I know what I'm doing, especially when all reality shows that I don't,
Don't.
there's only one answer. I have to come to the end of myself.
So with you saying that you had to come to the end of yourself, I believe I know what you're talking. I believe I know what you're saying when you say you come to the end of yourself. But some people may not know what that term means. Can you explain a little bit about what that term means? Come to the end of yourself.
Absolutely. So um there's a lot of people that would say or think that coming to the end of yourself means, like, for instance, a bottom, not meaning a bottom of alcoholism or drug addiction or whatever. We're not even, like, we're talking about substance abuse in a way, and that's a lot of it, but that's not all we're talking about. Like, it wasn't just coming to the end of myself and realizing that it's more of the internal bottom, not the external bottom, so to speak. Not like losing. When I mean coming to the end of myself, I don't mean losing a home, losing a girlfriend or a wife or whatever your thing is. Not that I went to jail or that I OD'd or ending up in bad situations, stealing stuff, homelessness, or whatever the case may be. That's not what I mean. You can be all of those things, homeless, in prison, with a substance abuse issue and ODing. You can be all three of those things and still not be at the end of yourself. You understand what I'm saying? You can still try
Yeah.
to keep going because you think you always have an answer. Like, you always think that I have a way out or I know
Way
what
out.
to do. So I'm talking about the internal, the internal end of myself, where on the inside, sometimes it can be something small, sometimes it can be all of those things we just discussed at once, but somewhere along the line on the inside of me, I come to the end of myself, meaning I'm out of ideas. I don't have any more answers. I don't know where to go. I think that I'm like we talked about before we got on here. Like when I'm literally like think I have resigned to the fact that I'm going to die or I'm going to spend the rest of my life in jail, and that for me was acceptable. Like that point to the end of myself where like I'm out, I don't, my hands are in the air, and I this is the coolest part, where I say I don't know. Like the greatest
Because
thing I've ever known is I don't know. Because I always know. I always have an answer. I always know what to do. I always think I can control and manage a situation. In fact, I think that I can control and manage your situation too.
other people,
And until I come to the end of that and know that there's no control or management and I am out of ideas and out of answers, that's what I mean by the internal surrender of I'm at the end of myself.
I know, I know. It was like when you said that, I was thinking to myself, like just letting myself. I felt like that was the point where I was my own captor. If you know what I mean, like I was the only thing that
Yeah.
kept me bound up. I was the only thing that I was my own warden. If you if you, if you really, that's what I really meant. Like I was my own warden. I kept myself prisoner. So
Hmm.
when you said that, it was like I had to escape my side, escape from that other part of me. Because we're not just one. There's more than one side to us. So as a human, there's more than one side to a human. But that might be a little too. That might be something a metaphysical type thing. So we'll just keep it on track. But
Yeah.
being worth the struggle, man, is a huge deal when you come from certain situations, and not talking about certain areas or environments. Talk about certain situations like lifestyle, um, home, your upbringing, those type of things. We go through struggles in those manners without without substances. So this is why this topic is so powerful, because everybody should be able to. A lot of people should be able to relate to this, whether you're an addict, recovering addict, or not. Because we're talking about traumatic experiences. We're talking about incarceration, on top of the substance use. You know. So when did you realize, or when did you feel like you were worthy? When you felt like you wanted to give yourself a chance, you had to give yourself a chance, and throwing the towel on the use, on the trauma, on the self-inflicted pain, all that type of stuff. When did you feel like um, Matt is worth it?
Be, before I got before I go into that, I have to address this. There's people that seen that I was worth the struggle long before I thought I was worth the struggle, you know?
Yeah,
And those
yeah.
people helped me to get to that point, but I have to give a explanation of what I mean by that. Like my mother, for instance, my mother and father, man, have always believed in me, you know. Now there's been times where they may have given up and like kind of knew that like, okay, that's it, but they never gave up that I could change, you know. My mother, oh, I remember I remember being a juvenile, right? And my family sent me to this it's kind of like a this little home, you know, where it was like this little program for juvenile delinquents like myself, right? And I went there and I did the same thing that I did there everywhere else. Like I would um get in fights. I got angry, you know, I was messing with the girl there, and then everybody didn't like that I was messing with the hot girl there. So I got into all these fights. They tried to jump me and all this stuff is down Maryland. So I'm around all these Maryland boys that know each other and I don't know none of them, you know.
Mhm.
And I remember I'm fighting them and they were blaming me, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's always everybody else's fault, you know? And
You better believe it.
they shot me up with Thorazine, right? And I was like knocked out on the bed because they hit me they hit me with Thorazine. And I remember hearing them on the phone talking to my mom and dad. telling my mom and dad that they had to come and pick me up. And for years, I had thought that my family like didn't support me in that. I thought that they were they were kind of condoning what it took in place. They didn't believe me or whatever. And it wasn't too like maybe like 5 years ago that I opened up this book, right? And it had a letter from my mom in it. And it was a letter that my mom wrote to that place. And what she was saying in that letter, man, was like, I brought, oh man, phew. She was like, I brought my son here for help, you know,
Mhm.
and all you guys did was just kick him out. Like, we came here for answers and for help. And the first thing y'all did the first week he was there was like kick him out. And like for years, man, I thought that my mom and dad didn't support me in that effort. But when I read that, man, I just like broke down, almost like I am now, you know. I just broke and was like, I can't, like my mom was there. She loved me. She was supporting me even then. Like all the times that I went to jail, all the times, man, look at this. I want to show you something real quick.
Bring
Look
it.
at this. You see that? You see that right there?
I see the back.
That's my that's my mom's purse.
All right.
My mom would never leave her
Leave it.
purse around me, ever. It's sitting right there now. Like I'm at my family's home right now, not my house. I'm at my mom and dad's house right now, and they don't hide. No, like I would steal everything from them. I had police standoffs at their home. This house that I'm currently in, police standoffs while the neighbors watched. I've been in the newspapers after doing criminal activity. You know, after I shot somebody, tried to rob me in 2006, and I'm in the newspaper smiling, and they supported me through that. They supported me through stealing their cars, breaking into their homes, stealing stuff out of their house, and they never, not once, did not love me. Through prison, they used to bail me out. They used to get me lawyers. They used to send me commissary. They answered my calls.
Mhm.
You understand? Like there was people, and even when everybody, there was another time, and I gotta explain this to you. There was
Bring it.
another time I went to court, like I was this is when I got into the, I shot the guy. And they were like not trying to let me make bail. They were like trying to reject my bail. And my family was putting their house up. This house that I'm in right now. They're putting the house up. And my mom goes up to the lawyer, or excuse me, the judge. My mom and dad are there. And they're this is the situations that I put my family and not just myself, but everybody around me. And I'm sitting there and literally they're asking my mom, why? Ma'am, why would you want to bail him out? This is what the judge is telling my mom. And he said this to her, what is your education? Man, the embarrassment I put on my family of him confronting my mother, asking what my mother's education is, basically saying, you're stupid for letting him out. You must not be educated. And my mom said, I have a triple master's. And she said, that's my son, and he ain't going to run. And she supported me and still bailed me out, even through that. My family has supported me in every effort, even when no one else, including myself, my mom and dad supported me and believed in me. You know what I'm saying? So before I get into how I got to believing in myself, it's only right for you to understand that without that, without the substance of them believing in me and doing all the things that they did for me, coming up and all of that stuff, there would have been no me believing in me. Like
Mhm.
there was people that believed in me before I believed in myself. So how I got to believing in myself is kind of what we started with. I came to the end of myself, to the end of my rope. I had no idea what to do. I had no idea where to go. I was out of ideas. I was out of answers. And I'll say this too. I knew that there was a God, right? I knew that there was a God. I knew what God that I believed in, but it was kind of like I felt as though I had done so much harm that that was no longer available to me. Like I was no longer, worthy of forgiveness or mercy or grace. I didn't believe that. So that's another part of the end of myself where not only did I give up because I believed in God, but I also believed that God had given up on me. And then somewhere along the line, like I remember it distinctly. I almost remember the moment that it happened. I was in a rehab down Florida. I was with my significant other who passed away also from a fentanyl overdose. And Crystal Ann Lachette was her name. And I remember we were in rehab and we were together. And I remember just something happening to me where like I was just like coming to the end of myself and I was like, yo, I have to do something. And the only answer that I had left was to try these 12-step things through a program, a 12-step fellowship, right? The program of action and God. And they took us to church at this rehab. And they were like, hey, they came around and they were like, hey, does anybody want to go to church? And and just like when I was in juvenile detention center, I was like, I don't really want to go to church, but I wanted to get out of the rehab. So I went to the church, and I'm telling you, like, this guy, the preacher, his name was Pastor Daniel. I'll never forget it. The message was on something, and he said it was on counterfeit. I'll never forget this ever in my life. He was giving a message on counterfeit, and his name was Pastor Daniel, and he was up there. It was my first time ever attending this church, or any church for that matter, in a very long time. And this guy was up there, and all I can say is everything he was saying was directly my story and I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida. This church is massive and everybody in it looks like they come from money. You know what I'm saying?
Money.
Like I knew what this guy was talking about and the struggles that this guy was talking about was not for the people around me, it was for me. Like all I could say is that that guy spoke through that guy directly to me. And I don't mean Pastor Daniel said, "Hey Matt, you right there, get up." I just knew that what he was saying was for me. And I remember looking around and I was like, oh my gosh. And like all these people got their hands up in the air and they're praising, right? And they're worshiping, God. And like they're happy, bro. Like I'm looking around at the smiles on these people's faces. And all I could think about was, I don't even care if they're wrong. Like I want to believe and feel like they feel, you know? And I remember thinking about my man Eddie Mahan, who had just got murdered. He got murdered in Chester. They shot him 12 times. He was trying to rob somebody for some drugs, like we do. Could have happened to any of us. And so I'm thinking about him, and I'm just like, and my friend Aaron, and all my friends that are gone, and I'm thinking about all of my friends that are gone. And Crystal was alive at the time, so I'm thinking of, and my brother was alive, my nephew was alive at the time. So I remember just thinking about all of these people, and was like, oh my gosh, like I can't, like I was a much worse person than they are, and yet I'm here, breathing, alive, and they're not. And I don't mean like for me, I lost my friends. I mean, like, I just felt grace and mercy in my life. Like, I just was like, I can't believe I felt chosen, bro. I felt chosen. I was just like, I can't, but I don't know what you chose me for. And I felt God come back into my heart that very day. I felt him, come into my heart and in a way that I've never felt before, where I knew that in fact he does forgive me. And not only does he forgive me, but all of those struggles that I went through were for a reason. And they were
Reason.
to create and make somebody like me. It's just like in the book, in the big book, in the Bible, it talks about that stuff. It talks about like who's greater. Is the lady who gives up a penny greater, is the one that gives up $1 million greater? Is the person who's been faithful his whole life greater than the one who has turned his back on God and created all this havoc and yet turned around and gave his life back to God? Which one's greater? And it talks about we're the ones that are greater. I'm not saying that anyone go back out there, wreak havoc, and then turn to God because it'll make you greater. I'm just saying, and nor would I wish any of the things. There's a lot. Listen, I don't. I look back at my life and I'm wondering how I was even built for it. Honestly, I don't even understand how I was able to go through the struggles that I went through, but I do now see that everything that I went through was for a 100% for a reason. It makes me useful to God. It makes me useful to the people that are like me. It makes me when I go into the institutions, like, look, I have three jobs. I have my job where some people know I sell drug tests. Like every type of drug test, I work for the biggest distributor in the country for drug tests. I have my own website. It's called buytestcup.com. I sell drug tests, right? And then I have another job, which is my job that I work for a laboratory, a full service laboratory. We do toxicology, pathology, cancer screening, genetics testing, things like that, right? And I'm director of business development for that job, right? And then I have my real job. And my real job, I don't get paid for doing, but it's my real job. Don't make no mistake about it. My real job is for me to work with people like you, people like who were talking, people who were watching, people in my community, the friends that I grew up with that had no answers, that are out of ideas, that don't know a way out, to provide them, not with, hey, I changed and you can. Like when I go into the prison, the same prison I swore I'll never go back to, I know I now go back into in my own free time and will to go in there when I can, when I have the time to do it, to go back in there and carry the message. And I don't go in there and say, hey, I changed and you can too. I go in there and give them the process. Here's the instructions on how to change. And like you said, before drugs and alcohol, although that's a very prominent issue, in prison, of not just the substance abuse thing, going in there and explaining to people, not, but there's a way out, but also showing them exactly how. Like I'm not going in there and saying, hey, I changed and you can too. It's more of, here's the instructions on how to change. So when I'm doing a workshop, I'm showing people exactly what to do in order to, number one, have that internal change. And then comes the external stuff. Because most of them people that I go in there and see, I've seen my whole life even when I was there. So now it's to a point when you come home, what to do, how to build credit, how to get a license, how to manage, your life in those ways. Like not just coming home, getting a couple, things and being satisfied with that, but actually going to accomplish your hopes and dreams. You know what I mean? I try to steer people on how to do, I mean, literally just going and buying a small credit card or something like that. So the struggles that we've been through help us to help people with everything that we've ever had problems with. You know what I'm saying? From substance abuse to building credit to finding a job to educating ourselves to, being useful. Like it helps us to achieve every goal.
And thank you again, Matt. I'm gonna have to give you a round of applause for that, man. Because
Oh, that's funny.
it's kind of rough. Yeah, yeah, I had to shoot that out there. I figured I'd make up for the glitches that I had. But it's kind of rough coming from certain backgrounds, and then making the transition to uh, be a part of the solution instead of being a part of the problem. For a lot of us, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal, and sometimes it's not even fathomable. A lot of us give up. A lot of people give up and throw in the towel. And I think it comes from not feeling, like you said earlier, worthy. Not thinking, not believing in yourself, not believing that you're going to be able to make that transition. And I did just want to ask you one more question before we um, start to wrap up. But do you remember? Do you have an idea of when that transition took place for you? I'm asking this question for a reason. I'm asking it because sometimes people that are watching or people that will watch later on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and they might not feel like they're worthy. I just want to be able to show people that you know we know what's going on with us, but we have to be able to pinpoint and be able to figure out what's going on with us and to be able to make that decision and not let other people influence us and sway us the other way.
I
You
feel like,
remember when?
uh, yeah, I mean, I feel like I answered that. I mean, down to almost to the second. I remember when it started, but the transition is a little bit more of an extensive answer of exactly the start is one thing, but how to complete the process is another. You know what I'm saying? Like you can have, you know, I guess it would be like a white light awakening or something like that, but still not to know what to do afterwards. You know, you can, for instance, like for people who have a spiritual experience, you know, you can have a spiritual experience and understand and accept God, like I was telling you that happened to me in that church that day, you know, but then not know what to do afterwards. And there's work for people like us afterwards to do. Because I can't continue to be the same human being, and like we were discussing before we got on here, I can't still be a hole, you know, and not that I'm not sometimes, you know, like catch me driving on 95. Like I'm, you know, there's definitely times where I'm an a hole and brake checking people or something like that, you know. But I'm just saying, like, in order for me to recognize myself, and I'll explain. So first, the first thing was, you know, being open to that idea of a spiritual experience, right? Being open to that idea of God. The second thing was understanding of what I suffered from, meaning substance abuse wise and not just substance abuse wise, but selfish and self-centered wise. How my whole life was so self-centered and everything was about me, and I was so egotistically, you know, inclined of like everything was about me. I had to realize that like I'm not the ish, you know what I mean? Like and that process was like, yo, I have to allow God to manage and control my life, not just with the substance abuse problem, but period. So I had to understand what I suffer from as far as the substance abuse problem, which was selfish and self-centeredness, and the substance abuse problem, meaning like I was in a hopeless condition and hopeless state of mind and body and spirit, honestly, because I had lost my spirit. Like, and how that happened was kind of like you know, stealing growing up. I stole everything. I stole candy bars, comic books, you know, baseball cards, things like that. But every time I stole something, I'm talking about as a kid, before drugs and alcohol ever came into my body, I was like stealing, and something inside of me was telling me that it was wrong. Like it was a powerful, they called it our conscience, right? And God consciousness. Something inside of us was like, don't do that, you know? But I continued to do what that thing inside of me told me not to do until eventually it got more and more quiet. So don't do that started to sound like, you know, and I quieted my spirit and shut my spirit up and started to justify on why it was good to do those things and not listen to that spirit. So I had to wake that back up. And through that process was like number one, that experience that I had in that church that day, you know. And it wasn't the church, it was just the experience that I had. You can have that experience anywhere. It doesn't have to be a church. So I don't want to, you know, make it it could be in a car, you know. And then, you know, understanding what I suffer from, meaning um like when I pick up alcohol, something happens to me that doesn't happen to other people. You know, it's not, I can be around alcohol. I don't care if you drink or whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter to me. You know, my girl can. You know, if I you know when I get a girlfriend, uh, she can use alcohol or whatever the case may be. It's not going to bother me. You know, unless she's one of us. You know, of course you don't want. But I need to understand that when I pick up, I can't stop, you know? And then when I stop, I can't stay stopped. Just to put it brief to you, when I can't stay stopped. I convince myself on why it's a good idea to start again. So that's why I need God in my life to understand, like, yo, Matt, no, you can't start again, you know? And he does that for me. And then I dedicate my life to God. I come to the end of myself, like I said, and I accept God in my life. And I'm like, yo, I don't care if you think I'm a sucker, you think I'm weak or whatever, you think I'm a coward or whatever. I'm following God, whether you like it or not. You know, I mess with the all powerful. I don't know what your little butt wants to do, you know, but I'm following God, you know, and I don't care if you like it or what you think of me for doing that. That's my man, period, you know. So then I got to do this is where it happens at. I got to do inventory on my life. Inventory is kind of like the change of perspective. And this, listen, I'm not just talking about 12-step fellowships. I'm talking about like inventory would be good for anybody, rather you never suffered from any problem. Meaning like I can, and there's 300 plus 12-step fellowships for selfish and self-centeredness in one form or another. But like, I mean, like changing my perspective, for instance, like every time I went to jail, they're like, damn, Matt, oh man, what happened? How'd you get here? What happened this time? And I'm like, oh man, the boy told on me. That's my answer. You know, the
Yeah,
boy told on me.
yeah,
I don't have no responsibility for me being in jail. I'm telling you, it's not because I did something to someone. It's because someone told on me that I'm in jail. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
You know, it's a ridiculous perspective. So I know it sounds funny, but when you're listening to it, but like for you to see it in me is easy, but for you to see it in you is the difficult part. For me to change my perspective, to know that it's not my dad that's the issue, it's not my mom that's the issue, it's not the PO or the community or law enforcement or the judge or my girlfriend or the kids that are the issue. It's always been me. So it changes my perspective, not just changes it, but actually helps. Let me rephrase that. It doesn't just change my perspective. It helps me to see the truth, and the truth is that I'm the issue. You know, that's the truth. That I cause all these problems. You know, I rob and steal and then wonder why I'm in jail. I take all my parents' stuff and wonder why, they're angry at me. You know, I don't show up to work for 4 days and then blame my boss because he didn't give me the pay that I wanted to pay at the time that I wanted you know what I'm saying? Like just the ridiculous stuff. So it helps me to change my perspective and see myself, see the truth about me. And that's necessary in order for me to continue with this process of change. And then I need to make an amends for those things and the people that I harmed. My mom and dad, for instance, my neighbor right next door here, the community, law enforcement, whoever it is, all the people, girlfriends, exes, my not boyfriends, meaning boyfriends, but my friends, my guy friends, my everybody, like my community, my not just my neighbor, my bosses, my old coworker. Like I had to go after I see that I am the issue and I'm the one that caused these problems. So now I got to go back to my boss and say, yo, that when I didn't show up for work for 4 days and stole all your stuff, it wasn't because you didn't get me a raise, it's because I'm an a-hole, and tell my mom and dad, like, yo, it wasn't because of what happened and the trauma growing up that I'm like this. It was because I was an asshole, I gotta go to, and just and make stuff right. I can't just say, "Oh, I found God now. I know I owe you money, but God forgave me, so should you." I need to pay people their money back. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff, and then give back to my community. Like I do what I do because I love it. Like I owed it. I'm not like going to the prison because like, oh, look at me, I go to the prison, or doing the workshops in the community that about, and the recovery workshops in the community because like look at me, I do workshops. It's because I owe. You know what I mean? I owe my community, so of course I do these things to try to give back to them. You understand what I'm saying?
I definitely understand what you're saying, and I'm trying to work my way into doing a little bit of what you do. But anyway, I don't want to. No. But anyway, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of everything that you do. I'm gonna say this, Matt. I'm proud that I have that I had the opportunity. That I do have the opportunity to have met you, and that we had a couple
Likewise.
conversations a while back, and you are one of the people that uh, really bring it 100% when you do bring it, and I thank you for that. I just want to let people know that when I reached out to Matt, I thought in my mind, in my little head, I was thinking he's gonna be too busy. He's gonna have all this stuff going on. But as soon as we made contact, you immediately said yes you know when you want to do the episode. So you accepted the invite
Yep.
immediately, and I thank you for that. And I'm pretty sure I'm almost positive that this episode is going to help somebody else with the information as long as they sit down and take it in. But at the end of it now, I just want to ask you one more question, and then we're going to log off here. I want to know what do you have any contact information for anybody that wants to get in contact with you that may need some assistance in any area, um, like through your website or any information that you had.
Yeah, so you can contact me directly. My number is 302-510-5672. You're welcome to contact me if you need to reach out for help. As far as business goes, that's a whole nother matter. It's not what I'm here for, but my website's called buytestcup.com if you ever are in need of um, drug testing devices or whatever the case may be. But that's really not why I'm here. My number, my direct number is 302-510-5672. And if you need help, please reach out to me and I'll try to connect you to the people around you or connect you to the people that I know.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you once again for being on. But that's gonna be our time for tonight. I just want to say thank you again. Everybody have a great night. Be safe. Be blessed. Next time.